As we approach the 90th anniversary of Social Security, the New York Times, NYT, recently published an article containing assertions about 6 myths that persist about Social Security. https://www.nytimes.com/2025/business/Social Security Retirement Myths, HTML. However, rather than dispelling misconceptions, this article inadvertently reinforces several inaccuracies surrounding this vital program. Given that Social Security is merely 7 years away from insolvency, https://www.crfb.org/OBBA would accelerate Social Security Medicare insolvency. It is crucial to clarify the facts. Below, we address these alleged myths and highlight the genuine threats facing the funding of the program. #Alleged Myth 1. Social Security is running out of money. Fact: the trust fund for Social Security is depleting fast. The NYT labels the belief that Social Security is in financial trouble as a myth, even while admitting that the program is currently drawing down the program's reserves due to expenses surpassing income. By 2032 or 2033, before the OBBBA adjustments, the Trust Fund for the Old Age and Survivors Insurance, OASI, will be exhausted. When this occurs, the law stipulates that benefits must be limited to what is coming in from revenues, leading to an estimated 24% reduction in benefits for everyone. This would mean roughly an $18,000 annual cut for a couple retiring in 2032. There is no myth in claiming the trust fund is on the verge of depletion. Urgent action is required by policymakers to prevent a sharp reduction in benefits just 7 years from now. Alleged Myth 2. Aging boomers are the issue. Fact: the shortfall in Social Security arises primarily from an aging population. Presently, around 60 million older adults receive Social Security, significantly up from under 50 million a decade ago, and even lower figures, 40 million in 2000 and 30 million in 1980. People aged 65 and above now comprise 18% of our population, climbing from about 11% in 1980, with over 10,000 American retirees every day increasing the number of beneficiaries. The aging population, including retiring baby boomers, undeniably contributes to rising Social Security costs. The NYT itself acknowledges that there's a link between an aging society and an accelerated depletion of the trust fund. While the article notes that income inequality and dwindling birth rates have reduced the payroll tax revenue as a percentage of GDP from 5% in 1990 down to 4.5% in 2024, it fails to emphasize that costs have soared from 4.2% of GDP to 5.3% within the same time frame, with projections indicating continued increases to 5.9% by 2050. The NYT dismisses concerns about population aging as a myth because it was anticipated. This does not negate its reality. The lack of legislative action over the last 40 years regarding this situation doesn't render the issue a myth. Alleged Myth 3. Social Security fees the deficit. Fact: Social Security is currently putting pressure on the unified budget deficit and may amplify it in the future. The NYT accurately states that Social Security is primarily funded by payroll taxes and has no authority to borrow beyond those funds, yet this doesn't prevent it from contributing to the annual budget deficit. Understanding the distinction between on-budget deficits, which don't include Social Security and the Postal Service, versus unified budget deficits, which encompass all government spending and income, is vital. Most discussions in Washington revolve around unified budget deficits. Historically, between 1990 and 2010, Social Security generated $1.1 trillion more income than expenses, subsequently diminishing the overall budget deficit. However, since then, fiscal pressure has reversed this trend, with Social Security expenses surpassing its income by $1.4 trillion, thus adding to the deficit. In this fiscal year alone, Social Security is expected to contribute an additional $250 billion to the overall deficit. The NYT does mention that after becoming insolvent, Social Security cannot legally use general revenue to cover benefits. Ironically, the article suggests the possibility of injecting such funds to maintain benefits, which contradicts its own advice. Alleged myth 4. The trust fund is merely a collection of IOUs. Fact. The trust fund signifies a legitimate obligation but lacks tangible asset backing. The reserves in the trust fund do represent a legitimate commitment from the federal government, much like an IOU bond. These IOUs come with a promise of repayment with interest in the future. The government has consistently made these payments for the bonds it redeems over the past 15 years. However, unlike corporate bonds or stocks, these instruments are not supported by private sector assets, nor are they traded in private markets. Essentially, trust fund bonds illustrate a transfer between government accounts, assuring that past payroll tax revenues facilitate future benefit payments. They differ from appreciating assets one would find in personal retirement accounts or investment funds. Alleged myth 5. Cutting benefits now ensures future payments. Fact. Proactive benefit and revenue reforms are crucial for maintaining full benefit payments. Given current laws, beneficiaries could face an immediate 24% cut in benefits in just 7 years. Preventing this drastic measure involves addressing Social Security's ongoing financial imbalance through reductions in spending, benefit payments, increases in revenue, or a blend of both strategies. Tools like the Social Security Reformer, https://www.crfb/Social Security Reformer, can help craft personalized plans toward financial solvency, while the NYT asserts that we need not cut benefits now to ensure future payouts. It's generally recognized that any effective long-term solution will likely demand bipartisan support and a combination of both revenue increases and benefit adjustments based on historical patterns. The earlier action is taken, the less drastic the required changes will be. For instance, if reforms begin immediately, the estimated cut required to restore solvency is 22%. However, if reforms wait until 2034, that percentage could increase to 26%. This kind of progressive action allows for gradual implementation, targeted adjustments, and adequate planning time for impacted individuals. Alleged myth 6. Social Security is rife with waste, fraud, and abuse. Fact. Instances of fraud and abuse within Social Security are incredibly minimal. Of all the claims made in the NYT article, this is the only point that can genuinely be considered a myth. Social Security boasts an overpayment rate of less than 1%, one of the lowest among federal programs. Although there's always space for improvement, particularly in the disability segment, fraud and misuse are rare in the Social Security system, certainly not extensive enough to substantially skew its financial health. As we approach that critical 7-year point of insolvency, Social Security requires urgent attention and a solid plan for the future. The first step toward this goal is for politicians, experts, and the media to commit to sharing accurate information about the challenges the program faces. We don't need further articles that perpetuate myths instead of debunking them.